Hi all, welcome to KC Young Adult BSF. I'm excited to share with you tonight, and before we get started, let me start us off in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for all that are listening to this lecture. Lord, I pray that you would give me the words to say and that you would speak through me. Please be with everyone who is listening. Give them the ears to hear what you are speaking to them. Thank you for blessing our class and continue to shine your light on KC Young Adult BSF. In your name I pray, amen. So let's hop in. Growing up, I had the opportunity to go skiing each Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. My youth group would fill a travel line bus and drive to Winter Park, Colorado for a long weekend of skiing. If you ever get the chance to go skiing or even ride a gondola up a snowy mountain, I would highly suggest doing it. Watching the beautiful white landscape approach is magnificent, and let's not forget the breathtaking snow-capped mountains. My favorite run to ski is the Parson Bowl, and there's a picture there of Connor at the top last year. Go Chiefs. That's the highest point in the Winter Park complex and the most beautiful. When you reach the top, you can see for miles around you the different peaks of the Rocky Mountains, and it is so glorious. Skiing the bowl is not only exhilarating as you ski down a peak 12,000 elevation, but it is also exhilarating as you marvel at the work of our God. Being in Winter Park, Colorado, skiing is one of the many places that I have encountered God throughout my life. Now, I've never actually talked with God, but I have encountered him through people, in nature, and life events. Where have you encountered God? Have you ever felt that there was a time where God wasn't with you? Tonight, we're going to journey with Jacob as he flees from his family to go to the land of his mother, Rebecca. We will watch as Jacob takes his first steps in faith as he encounters God for the first time. My first division for tonight is Genesis 28, 1 through 9. Isaac blesses Jacob. If you remember from last week in Genesis 27, Jacob has already been blessed by receiving the blessing from Isaac. However, Isaac was intending to give the blessing to his eldest son Esau, but he was deceived by Jacob and Rebekah. This enraged Esau that he didn't receive the blessing, and he threatened to kill Jacob when his father died. Rebekah caught wind of Esau's plans and told Jacob that he must flee to Haran, where her brother Laban lives. This first division is Jacob's send-off from his family. As we begin reading chapter 28, we see that it seems that Isaac has had a change of heart. Instead of mourning that his son Esau did not receive his blessing, Isaac accepts that God intended for Jacob to receive the blessings and more full-heartedly gives Jacob commands and blesses him before he leaves. We wonder if Isaac had finally submitted to God's ultimate plan from Genesis 25:23. The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Or maybe Isaac felt defeated and wanted to comply to keep the peace in his family. No matter why Isaac chose to bless Jacob, it was a fatherly thing to do and seemed to impact Jacob. Isaac first commanded Jacob not to marry a Canaanite woman like his brother Esau, and we know that this was essential in carrying on the family line of the Messiah. Also in Genesis 27, we see Rebekah confide in Isaac that life will not be worth living if Jacob took a wife from Canaan like Esau. After this command, Isaac blessed Jacob again. However, this blessing seemed more heartfelt, and it was definitely more God-centered. Let's read Isaac's blessing over Jacob. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham so that you may take possession of the land where you now live as an alien, the land God gave to Abraham. Genesis 28, 3 through 4. This blessing is very similar to the blessing God gave to Abraham and then Isaac. We can imagine that Isaac had desired for this blessing to be given to Esau, but knew that was not God's plan. It is hard to trust God's plan when we think our plan is better. How have you trusted God's plan and seen its fruition? By God's grace, Isaac was able to bless Jacob before his departure. We took away from the previous chapter of scripture that Isaac and Jacob were not the closest. Isaac favored Esau over Jacob. I wonder, since this relationship was not the best, how well Jacob knew who God was. Had it been a roadblock in Jacob's relationship with God? Maybe this blessing was a key turning point in Jacob's journey, impressing on him the promises of God and encouraging him to follow him. This blessing was to go before Jacob and protect him. As Jacob leaves, he doesn't take great amounts of wealth with him, which is unlike the last journey this family made to find Rebekah. Since Jacob is headed to find a wife from the line of his mother, we wonder how he will bless the family of his future wife, as is the tradition. Before we talk more about Jacob, let's first talk about the last 3 verses of this division, telling us about Esau's reaction. We can imagine that Esau is probably still heated and upset about the blessing and that Jacob did trick him with giving up his birthright. I mean, Esau wanted to kill Jacob, and now his favorite parent just blessed him again and is sending him off. I don't know about you, but I would be pretty upset. In Esau's eyes, not only did his brother take his birthright and blessing, but his dad commands Jacob not to marry a Canaanite woman, something that Esau had already done. So what does any envious sibling do? Well, of course, the opposite of what your parents want. It tells us in verses 8 through 9, Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael and married Meleth, the sister of Naboth, and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. Oh, how I relate to Esau. When my temper and envy gets out of control, I choose what I know is wrong. I turn my back on what the Lord is calling me to do and choose my own way. When I choose my own way, I have to take responsibility for the consequences of my actions. However, because of God's grace on the cross, I am able to lay my sins down and ask for repentance through Jesus. Because of God's grace, I can let go of the burden of sin, guilt, and shame and rest in the peace that God gives. We can only hope that later in our journey through Genesis, that Esau can grow in his walk with God, along with him and Jacob reconciling their faults and sins. But in the meantime, we can hold on to our principle for this section, that God graciously provides for his people. God graciously provides for his people. God knows our heart. He knows what our biggest struggles are and still loves us. We see God providing for Isaac and understanding heart of his plans, being willing to let go of his expectations and follow God's plan. We see Jacob being blessed and God working on his behalf without him even realizing it. As Jacob heads out to Haran, we wonder where God will continue to provide for his people. Encountering God while skiing in Colorado is probably one of the top moments of my life. Wandering through the Beijing airport, however, may have been one of the least. My church has a partnership with a small church in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I have had the privilege of getting to travel to Chiang Mai twice to visit this amazing congregation, and they're some of my best friends. However, my first trip to Chiang Mai was not my favorite. From having delayed flights and being overly nervous to travel out of the country so far from my family, for the first time, when I arrived at the Beijing airport, I felt very alone. Being out of the country for the first time, I was more than excited to be exposed to a new culture and language, but I wasn't really prepared for the reality check that was the Beijing airport. Not only was I super jet lagged, but I struggled to find my way around the airport. At that moment, I felt very alone. I second-guessed all my excitement and joy of traveling abroad to see my brothers and sisters in Christ as I sat in the airport overwhelmed by the culture shock of a different country. I wonder if Jacob felt this way as he traveled from his home. Now, he wasn't in a crowded Beijing airport. He was literally alone. But at 40 years old, it seems that Jacob had been, in modern terms, a homebody. We read in Genesis 25:27, while Jacob was a quiet man staying among the tents. To me, that sounds like he didn't really go anywhere. And I do not consider myself a homebody, but my little sister does, and I am 99.9% sure that she would not enjoy traveling away from home without an exact return date, just like Jacob. I'll go out on a limb and say that Jacob, he probably felt the same way. However, God had great plans for Jacob as he journeyed alone and far away from home. My second division for tonight is Genesis 28:10 through 22, Jacob's dream. As Jacob journeyed away from his family, he moved farther and farther from the comforts of home and the family that he was accustomed to. He probably felt lonely and lost without any companionship. The last time I gave a lecture, we talked about Eleazar's journey to find Rebekah in Haran, the same place Jacob is traveling right now. However, Eleazar traveled with 10 camels and multiple goods, and we assume that there was other people with him. Unlike Eleazar, Jacob did not travel with anything or anyone. He didn't even have a pillow for his head. If you're like me, I really need a pillow to make sure that I sleep. And when it was time for him to stop and rest, instead of having some place to lay, he laid his head down on a stone. It kind of sounds a little depressing and that he was really alone. And the Bible tells us that Jacob had arrived at a certain place. It doesn't specify where, but we can imagine that Jacob felt very, very alone as he laid down to sleep. Even though Jacob felt that he was alone, he was not. God was with him. God had brought Jacob to this place to encounter him. God knew Jacob's heart. He knew that Jacob needed to be completely isolated to understand who God was and see his majesty. Maybe he knew that in this point of need that Jacob would listen better to God. Have you ever been at your very lowest and to then see and then saw God's mighty works? Also, God knew Jacob's past. He knew his relationship with Isaac, his follower attitude and Rebekah's schemes. God knew that Jacob needed to better understand the covenant that had been passed down to him with the blessing and now his birthright. What is holding you back from encountering God? Is there something like Jacob that you need to have that one-on-one time with God? So God brought Jacob to the desert alone without even a pillow for his head. Jacob, had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord. Genesis 28:12-13. Wow, that is an intense dream. Can you imagine seeing angels and God in one dream? When I think about the stairway to heaven in Jacob's dream, I think about the highest points that I have been on earth, and I still could not reach the heavens. Also, I think about a ziggurat, which there's a picture there. I got to see one when I was in Colorado, and this is a type of I guess it's kind of like a monument that people had in to get closer to God and to get closer to the sky. And so when I think of that, kind of think about that dream and the ladder that Jacob saw. We know that it had winding steps that seems like you're leading you up to heaven. And whatever this ladder or stairway or ziggurat looked like in Jacob's dream, it meant way more than just a staircase to heaven. This vision that Jacob saw was God sharing his ultimate grace and love with his people. We know that the stairway was meant to be an analogy for Jesus. In John 1:51, Jesus tells his new disciples, he then added, I tell you the truth, you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Jesus is the fulfillment of God's grace towards his people. Jesus connected a broken earth to our perfect God. Through God's grace, he sent Jesus to be our connection to heaven. He is heaven coming down to us, and by whom we can go to heaven. I like this analogy of this picture, that we are on one side and God is on the other. Our sin and death is in between, and that the cross, Jesus, connects us. Very similar to the stairway that Jacob saw in his dream. I bet you've probably seen it before. But God sent his son down to us is the ultimate example of God's grace and salvation. We know that our salvation is by grace alone. Through faith in Jesus, we can now enter God's presence boldly because Jesus is a sacrifice between us and God. What makes this a gift of grace hard to receive? Do you struggle to extend grace to others? Just like Jacob, we are all in constant need of God's grace. Where do you need to extend grace in your life? Not only did God show Jacob this awesome illustration of his son as the bridge between heaven and earth, but he restated the terms of the covenant he made with Abraham and Isaac that was now with Jacob. And it says, there above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. Genesis 28:13-15. Jacob knew about the covenant that his father and grandfather had made with the Lord. It had been passed down to him with his blessing and birthright. But to have the Lord of the universe come to you in a dream and repeat this covenant must have confirmed it even more. We know that God is a promise keeper and fulfills his word, and for Jacob, this confirmed this truth. We see in addition to the covenant, God says to Jacob, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Genesis 28:15. Wow. The God of heaven is committing to be with Jacob, to watch over him wherever he will go. He commits to not leave him until his works have been completed in him. Spurgeon says, the God of Bethel is a God who does concern himself with the things of earth, not a God who shuts himself up in heaven, but God who has a ladder fixed between heaven and earth. God is constantly at work, even if we do not see him in the news or on social media. God's work are not outward in our society, but behind the scenes. God is constantly near to us and working in our lives. In Philippians 1:6, it tells us, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. We know that God worked in us by forgiving our sins, and that he's continuing to work in us each day. God's covenant with Jacob shows his promise and encourages me as I choose each day to follow Christ. As Jacob awoke from his dream, I bet he felt a little groggy and confused. The Lord just spoke to him in a dream, and how powerful, but not at all what he expected when he went to sleep that night. How would you react if God showed up at the top of an escalator in the mall? Do you expect to encounter God in the mall, or the airport, or in a grocery store? Just like we do not expect to encounter God in these everyday places, neither did Jacob. We see this in his response. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. Genesis 28:16. Jacob was afraid. He did not expect for God to be in the desert with him. But we know our God is a big and amazing God. He's always with us. We use the term Emmanuel, God is with us, when we talk about his presence. How do you react when God shows up in your life unexpectedly? What is your response? Jacob responded in fear and awe that the Lord came to him. He woke up in the morning and used the stone, once known as a pillow, to create a pillar and poured oil on it. He named the place Bethel, which means house of God. Here the author shares with us that the place had previously been named Luz, which means separation. But we know that God came to this place and met Jacob there. We then see Jacob respond to God with a vow. If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And all of that you give me, I will give you a tenth. Genesis 28:20-22. He responded with a vow, but it seems that Jacob's response is not what we expected after witnessing the Lord of the universe and his angels coming down to earth. First off, he starts with the word if, showing that he is not fully convinced that God will keep his covenant with him. I think we would all like to think that Jacob is not bargaining with God, but if we look at past and present chapters, we can assume that this is not true. Jacob is not sure of God's ultimate power in existence. He does not fully trust that God will provide for him. He even offers God money if he keeps up his end of the covenant. Jacob does not even acknowledge God's promises to bless the nations, but instead is only worried about what he can get out of it. Simply, Jacob's prayer is selfish and is similar to a checklist of, if you do this for me, I guess I will do this for you. Do you ever pray like Jacob? Telling God that you will do something for him if he is willing to do just this one thing for you? Are your prayers selfish or pleasing to God? How can you learn from Jacob's prayer and response to God? We can compare Jacob's dream to a road to Damascus moment, like Saul, but afterwards Paul experienced. However, we do not see Jacob react in the same way. He does not acknowledge that he does acknowledge that God is Lord over all, but he does not change his ways or commit his life to doing God's work the way that Paul's life was ever changed. Will your response to God be like Paul's or Jacob's? Jacob's prayers show that his faith is still the size of a mustard seed, But we do know that God can work with faith that is the size of a mustard seed, and we will see that he does. God knew Jacob's heart and saw the progress that he was making. Small progress, but at least progress. God's ultimate purpose for Jacob's dream wasn't to make him feel afraid or in awe, but instead to show the story of Jesus coming to be with us. God's grace gives us confidence and hope as we face our daily lives. And our principle for this section is God's grace equips us to walk with him. God's grace equips us to walk with him. How do you respond to the Lord's grace of sending his only Son to the cross for our sins? Have you taken the time to respond to God's offer of salvation and eternal life? What would you look like if your life to fully grasp the gift of salvation? I saw God's grace shine down on me when I arrived in Thailand. The relationships that I had the opportunity to build encouraged me, and God worked and is still working in each of them. On the trip home, I did not feel as alone, knowing that God was with me, even in a foreign place. God provided me with safety and friends. He blessed me and showed me grace when I doubted his plan and work. God's presence is all around us. We see him in the beauty of nature on the top of a mountain or in the woods on a hike. We see God in our friendships and interactions with those we care about. God is also in the big things, weddings, birth of children, birthdays, travels. But he's also in the small things, an encouraging word from a close coworker, a hug from a close friend, a bunch of beautiful flowers. God's presence is also in the hard things, the death of a family member, a disagreement between friends, the loss of a job, even more than ever today in a global pandemic. The Lord our God is with us, Emmanuel. Let me pray for us. Dear Father, thank you for being with us. Even when we are in the desert, Lord, we know that you are there. Lord, please be with us as we go throughout our week. May we remember that, Lord, that you are with us and your promises and plans are so good, Father. May we cling to you and your plans and show your grace and love to others this week. In your name we pray, amen. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you next week as we learn more about Jacob and his journey to Haran. Have a great week. Bye.